Hello, fellow nerds. Welcome to Our Nerdiest Thing. I am here with special guest author Amari Nylix. Amazon bestseller Amari Nylix tells sordid stories revolving around tempestuous love affairs. She is inspired by the secret liaisons of Old West villains, heroes, and the temptresses who lure those powerful men into their webs. She particularly enjoys it when the men's armor is ripped away, exposing their soft underbellies, known as their hearts. She relishes in the men's pursuit of the soft, feminine kitten, only to find themselves shocked when she turns out to be a wanton minx. Amari works closely with best-selling author of both nonfiction and fiction, Tara Delaney. Tara has extensive professional experience in behavior and nervous system development, while also having studied the impact of how early trauma impacts our responses as adults. Tara is directly responsible for trimming back Amari's spicy scenes, allowing room for all the feels. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, and just to make it super clear for all of our listeners, you are Amari and also Tara. So tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about your double personality.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm Tara Delaney, and I've been a pediatric OT for over 30 years. So I've written books on autism, sensory processing, but all my life I wrote fiction. And in the late 90s, I actually wrote my first novel.
Oh,
And
wow.
it sat on a computer from the year 2000. We left Austin to 2020. And I'll
Oh,
just show you that
wow.
real quick. And that's this one, the red bike. It literally sat on an old computer for 20 years and was moved to 5 different locations. And in 2020, we sold our therapy business, and I had this idea for Austin Heat. I wasn't intending to write romance, so I kind of got pulled into it by the character Raquel, and I think there was a lot of fires happening in California at the time,
Yeah.
and I just pictured this girl losing her ranch in Australia, and then what would she do after, she lost her ranch, her dad passes away in it, and then the tumultuous relationship with her mother. And so I created this character first, and then when I went on the ride with her, she becomes a high-end escort, so I'm like, oh, it has to be steamy. And I
Yeah.
love to get everybody to Austin, Texas. That's like my I love Austin. Some of our best friends are there. My kids call
Yeah.
them aunt and uncle, and it's just really where my heart is. So I that's how Austin Heat came to life. And I realized that since I'm already still a pediatric OT, and I still consult and I lecture all over the country, that I really needed a pen name and a way to be kind of tongue in cheek about what I'm writing. I even have a costume for Amari Nylix. It's a long blonde pink wig, cowboy
Yeah.
hat, this fur jacket that I got at a thrift store, like it's this giant thing I would never wear. And turquoise cowboy boots, and I in a glittery dress, and I walk around Austin like that. And the cool thing about Austin is they don't care.
Yeah.
It's you're there. People don't go, oh, look at her, because Austin is weird. So it's kind of like, oh, there's another person, So
I
yeah, so
love
that's
that.
how my two personas, and I just kind of meld them together in that biography to
Sure.
so some readers would probably pick up on it. I want them to, but I also want to still have that, shadow of
Separation.
Amari Nylix. Yeah.
Yeah, it's separation of church and state, basically.
There you go. Let's
Yeah,
do that.
you're two different careers. Exactly.
Yes.
I love that you're making it so fun too, and not just like, well, I'll just use this other name. Like you've created an entire character with a backstory for your pen name as opposed to just a pen name. And I just think that's really fun. So
Well, and for
good
me,
job.
like Amari Nylix is, and you're too young to know this person, but look her up. So obviously Mae West, but it's Mae West meets Ann Richards, who was a governor of Texas. And
Okay.
you have to look her up, especially with what's going on in the world. She's
Mm,
such a badass. And she said, and I was young when she was governor, and I just remember being in awe of her. She said, Ginger Rogers did everything Fred Astaire did, but she did it backwards with heels on.
Yep.
And she said that during one of her campaign speeches. And I think it was like junior high. And I'm like, love her. And it
Yes.
was just, like it was kind of a miracle that she became, she was Democratic governor of Texas, and she went up against all these hard ass Texas guys, but she was just as fierce and protective of women's rights. I mean, she's my idol. So I like in my head think about her when I create female characters, and I think about Mae West. If you read about her, she was
Yeah.
really a feminist. So
Yeah.
anyway, sorry to go into how deep
No.
the character
No,
is.
that's what we're here for. This is our
Okay.
nerdiest thing. We
It is
go, yeah,
nerdy.
we go deep and we go
Yeah.
nerdy and we enjoy doing it.
Oh,
Um,
I love it.
well, let's talk a little bit about your Austin Heat series. So right now there are four books in the series that are
Right.
out. The One Who Is Mine, The One That I Crave, The One That Got Away, and The One Who Undid Me. And The One Who Undid Me is the most recent.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So tell us just a little bit about this series and what readers can expect from any of those books.
So, they have to think of it as an ongoing series, like Virgin River meets, I always tell people it's Virgin River meets Friday Night Lights meets a
Mhm.
little bit of Yellowstone toothpick chewing. So the two main male characters are NFL football players. Jake Pretty Boy Schuyler is from Austin, and his best friend is the wide receiver who's from Missouri. They both live in Austin. They play for a made-up team called the Sacramento Condors. So I split my time between Austin and Sacramento. And so that it's about Jake's sort of quest to find a normal girl in Austin. He's tired of these cheerleaders, these models, and just this life that he's created, part of it on social media.
Sure.
And so he meets this girl, and she's Raquel from Australia. She can ride horses, all the stuff he loves. And so she kind of has this basicness in his eyes, to her, but he doesn't know that she's a high-end escort.
Hmm.
And in the beginning, because she's not American, she doesn't know he's an NFL star, that
Right.
that he's a quarterback. So it's sort of about their journey, but there's so many other characters. So she's the high-end escort to Matt,
Mm.
he's a son of billionaire oil money, and he's
Mm.
gay. And so he hired her in London when his family was going to be there to be his pretend girlfriend. And they
Right.
become like brother and sister. They have a really intimate, sweet relationship that, I would say, can test anybody's love bonds in a
Yeah.
sexual relationship. So I kind of wanted to explore all of that, like what intimacy is.
Yeah.
There's lots of sex, don't get me wrong. People are like, okay, this just gets spicier and spicier. But also, those relationships that are really intimate. She becomes very close to Jake's older sister, who has a son with autism. And you'll
Mm.
see in the series that she goes through we get to know everybody's story as the series goes on. Originally, I thought it was going to be 6 books, but if you hang around me long enough, you can see that I talk a lot and I write a lot. But it's going to be more than that. I'll probably take a break after the 6th book because I'm working on the 5th book right now, and there'll be a different main character on the front. It'll be Dwayne. And my original thought is that James Polito, the actor that's on the front cover of the first 4, he would be on the front cover of the all 6.
Mm-hmm.
But people are demanding to hear Dwayne's story. So I kind of shifted. And that's why this
Yeah.
5th book coming out is taking me a little longer, because I kind of want to go with what people, not everything they want. Like everybody wants a
Right.
happy ending. Well, this
Yeah.
is real life, people. That doesn't always happen. I know it's supposed to happen in romance, but keep in mind, I'm not a romance writer. So people ask me, what's the tropes? And I'm like, huh? So my son, who's in film, going to school, college in film, he's like, Mom, everything's a trope. So this is a trope. So he's kind of helped
Yeah.
me a little bit. He doesn't read my books, by the way. He's one, and I don't want him reading my books until I'm dead.
I totally understand that, and I'm sure he understands that as well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So readers should not expect HEAs for all of your books or for any of your
Well,
books.
well, I think definitely there's definitely are happy endings and happy sort of get-togethers and stuff. But it is really an ongoing series. They get a lot more resolution for Jake and Raquel in the fourth book, and then even more in the fifth book. And in the fifth book, I'm trying to get it to where Dwayne, there's definitely resolution, but his story will still carry bits and pieces into the sixth book because he's involved in all these characters that are
Yeah.
part of this series. So you'll see these characters again, like Virgin River. If I
Hmm.
always tell people a spicy version of Virgin River set in Austin, Texas. So
Yeah.
um, that helps a little bit. I mean, some of it's in Sacramento and Tahoe because their training facility is in Tahoe. And when
Yeah.
I talk about these people, my friends are like, "Are these people real?" And I'm like, "No."
So, well,
Well,
they have to be to the author, right? They are real for you because you're writing their
yeah,
story. They have to be real to make it a realistic, good reading experience for everybody.
yeah.
For
It's
sure.
funny. It's mostly like my friends' husbands are like, What is she talking about?"
Does she know that she writes fiction?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
with the Austin Heat series, readers just need to be prepared that not every book is a complete story in and of itself, and that they
Right.
might end one book on some kind of cliffhanger or a non-HEA, but by the end of the whole series, it's it's all going to be all right, basically.
Right. It's all wrapped up, as by the end of the series. But you have new characters that just came in book four that will will start to be brought to the surface. And like Jake's sister, I never intended for her to have her own story, but
Yeah.
her dynamic with her son with autism and then her daughter and struggling to run a PR company in Austin. Her name's Melissa. Like I kind of really had her as a background character, but her
Yeah.
voice has just become so relevant to me. And maybe because that's been my world is working with children with autism and then just knowing the struggles, especially for parents and keeping marriages together and all
Yeah.
that. So I want you to know there's humor in this. It sounds like it's so serious, but there's a lot of humor
No,
in
it
it.
sounds fun.
Okay.
It
There's a
sounds
lot of humor,
layered
a
and
lot of
fun.
sex.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of real life stuff.
No, I think that's great. So you said earlier you didn't really set out to become a romance writer. Are there any romance authors or books that you feel like maybe motivated or inspired you? Or was this a genre that you just kind of stumbled into because that's where your characters took you?
Well, that's such a great question because I didn't read romance. I like every other woman in suburbia read 50 Shades, right? And I read the first, started to read the second one, and then I was like, oh, and I'm not
Yeah,
saying everybody loved it, but it just wasn't my thing. And I ran a
me
big
too.
book club in Austin for years. And so it was here that I read that. And I was like, oh, and then I didn't read any more romance at all.
Yeah.
And then an occupational therapist that worked for the company that I had for years, Cheryl Lister, incredible human. She started writing romance first, I believe, for Harlequin,
Mm.
specifically Black romance. And I was like, "You're writing romance." And we kind of like teased her in a fun way at work. I was like, "Oh my God, that's amazing." And she's this like amazing occupational therapist. And so I remember talking to her in the office and I was like, "Oh," and I kept thinking, I need to read something that Cheryl writes. So I didn't really get to read anything that she wrote and until, kind of leading into the pandemic. And so I read one of her books and I thought it was so mature. Like her characters are older, not
Yeah,
all of them, but they're mature characters. And I
sure.
really loved that. So one of her MCs, I loved him, and he's a sheriff in a small town. I just thought the interactions between the characters felt real to me. So someone in New York in marketing said, well, you need to, because I started writing this Austin Heat thing and I called Cheryl and she was like, this is how it's done. This is kind of the pattern. And I thought, I can't write in patterns. I just can't like conceivably do this. But I've learned a lot. Like I've made a lot of mistakes and then
Sure, yeah.
gone back and redone stuff. I had a bunch of material ready to go before I published the first book so that I could quickly do book 2 and
Sure.
3, so yeah, so I would say Cheryl Lister inspired me, and she'd be a fun one for you guys to talk to because she's
Yeah.
written a ton of books. It's amazing. And just her journey and why she chooses the characters she
Mhm.
does. And
Yeah.
so
I love
yeah.
too that collaborative spirit. Like so many authors have, especially through social media, are just so willing to help each other. And I just really love that about this community of readers and authors. And that's great. I
Yeah.
love that. So
Yeah.
you said your son has helped you a little bit understanding tropes. Have you discovered any tropes that you really enjoy writing, or any tropes that you try to steer clear of?
Um, so I would say I steer clear of the accidental pregnancy trope, but when you're writing 8 books,
Famous last words, right?
I can't guarantee. Well, because I've read a lot of them now that I was instructed to read romance, I've read a ton now. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, there's no way that kid is 5. Or, I mean, it's just my pragmatic brain. It's the Tara brain coming out like, what? No, no, no. But I still like them. You know what I mean? I still get
Yeah.
the the fictional kick out of them. But I do love uh, the enemies to lovers
Yeah, that's a good one.
thing. And I, with Jake and Raquel, love that. Well, you don't know what's going to happen, but I like the idea that the story arc can take characters
Yeah.
through all of that, like mistaken identity to him being crazy in love with her and her
Mm,
sort of being talked into it but never meeting somebody quite like him, and then the real life aspect of what happens to an NFL quarterback and this
sure.
girl who's entered the modeling world and now is scratching her way to in Hollywood, and what
Yeah.
happens to them as they pursue those careers, what happens to this. So I think that all of, if we're in a relationships long, we've gone through different
Yeah.
relationships, we've had those relationships that we were all good and then we become enemies. So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna happen.
Yeah. No, that is real life though. So you are working on book 5 right now. Do you have
Yes.
any kind of time frame that you could share about that, or any other upcoming
So
projects?
I'm aiming, and I haven't put it up the published date on Amazon yet, but I'm aiming for the end of April.
Oh,
And
awesome.
yeah, so we just were in Austin. We did photographs of the model that's going to be on the front cover. Um, the guy on the front cover of the other ones, James Joseph Polito, is an actor model from LA that flew to Austin, and I had all these ideas for scenes,
Mm,
and I ended up meeting this amazing photographer, and it's his second career. He's in his 50s, so he was like, I can help you put together stuff. And he got a videographer for me. And, we just had this amazing team. And then the guy that I got to play the wide receiver, he's a business guy
mm,
with, he coaches his son's, his son's little football team. His son's 12, I think.
Yeah.
And he was so nervous because
Oh,
like my husband said, he's a business guy. You know, you're hiring like you've got James
right.
who's an actor who's done this. So James was so great with everybody that his name is JD. I call him Dwayne, and so I like messing up his actual name. Even when I was just in Austin, I kept calling him Dwayne. He goes, I'll come to that name, whatever, you
Yeah.
know, I'll respond to that name. But they were so good together. If you see some of the video, the eye contact, they look like they've known each other since they were 10 in
Yeah.
like the gym workout scenes and stuff. So in this next book, he's going to be on the front cover, and I have a ton of cool videos with him. And he meets a girl who's from Mexico City, and you see a glimpse of her in book 4, and you'll
Mm,
really see her in book 5. So the reader knows something's going on with this girl
right.
by the end of book 4, right? So
Awesome. Well, end of April, that gives all of our listeners plenty of time to read the first 4 books in
yeah.
preparation for book
And
5.
they can take I mean, they're long books. They're all over, 400 and, probably 420, 400 up to 460 pages. And I know that's long, but if you think of it like a series,
Yeah.
then, so
Well,
yeah.
and if it's a good story, it doesn't matter how long it is. We'll read it.
Okay, there you go.
Well, that brings us to our nerdy and dirty speed round, which are really just
Okay.
random questions
Okay.
for listeners to get to know you a little bit. And we're just going to jump right in. No wrong answers, just whatever comes to your brain first. If you were going to be stranded in the mountains with one of your male main characters, which character would you choose?
So he's a new character and he's in book 4, Jackson Murdo, and he's from Louisiana, from a really, really tough upbringing. And he's just been recruited by the Sacramento Condors, and he's a loner.
Mm.
But I think he's a protector. He protected his mom from his dad. He's got a lot of trauma, but he would, he could go
Yeah.
after a bear. Well, he wouldn't drag him to Central Park, but he could go after a bear. I know. I'm sorry. I
That's
took a hit.
that
Took
would
a
be a big
political
that should
hit.
be a big red flag for all of us, shouldn't it?
Oh
You would think.
yeah.
Would you prefer when going to an event, would you prefer to be underdressed or overdressed?
Overdressed is, especially if I can wear cowboy boots with a dress. I like wearing cowboy boots with like a fun dress. That way you're still grounded, right?
Right, more
And
comfortable than heels for sure.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Who is your fictional character crush?
I would say Kendall McKnight from one of Cheryl Lister's books, The
Yeah.
Sheriff. And I guess it was the maturity for me and just um the conversations that he was able to have and opening up and stuff like that. So not a super known character, but you know,
As soon as you say sheriff, I immediately think of Bella's dad in Twilight
oh yeah, yeah.
with the mustache. I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
I would,
Yes.
I would go for that as well.
I know. I
What?
think of Sam Elliott. Do
Oh
you,
yeah, similar. The
yeah.
mustache and everything. Yep, I get that too. What personality quirk do you have that might surprise your readers?
Um, well, I talk to myself all the time. So, and I didn't realize I did that until I saw my son doing it. And I thought, okay, that makes you seem odd. And I had to kind of point it out to him. And he's like, Mom, you do it all the time. So I am constantly talking to myself, and I have to like be conscientious that that is not, a socially acceptable. Like literally to the point where I'm going, da, da, da. My husband's like, it's only scary when you talk back to yourself,
Right.
which
I
I don't
actually
do.
I do that a lot too, but it's more of like an anxiety coping mechanism. If I've got some kind of like tough conversation or like an interview type situation that I'm nervous about, I'll like play it out, a hypothetical situation basically, and talk it through to myself. But yeah,
Mhm.
it's one of those things where you're like, oh, not everybody does that. Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
So
great.
maybe it's not as quirky as I think, but no, I actually, when I realized that I did it all the time, as my son pointed it out young, he was probably 6 or 8, so around that
Mm,
age, and now he's 20. But I actually tell parents when they have children with anxiety issues or children with ADHD or children with
mhm.
anything to actually share that with their kids openly, like, oh, today I had this tough interview and this is what I said to myself, because
Mm,
self-talk, internal self-talk, is one of our greatest coping mechanisms.
yeah.
I just do it out loud, but
Yeah,
I
no,
talk too much
exactly.
in general.
So, what is your favorite thing to do on a day off from work?
Uh, well, we live really close to a lake, so to go and just walk around the lake. One of my New Year's resolutions this year is to really take a moment to take in the
Mm,
sensory aspects of the world around me again.
yeah,
That's my graduate research was in sensory processing. I always had the eye of kids looking at the sensory world and how it could be
yeah,
overwhelming. And I feel like since COVID and just everything that's going on in the world, all this messages with social media that um my goal is to connect back to the social that world and pay attention to it. So, and if I have my druthers, if my daughter's in DC and she just finished college, my best is to be with my husband and my kids, and go see a movie or, I love that kind of stuff, just hanging
yeah,
out. So,
yeah. I love that. I love that resolution to just be present with all of your senses. I like that a lot. I might steal that. And it's almost
yes.
February at the time of recording this, but it's never too late for a New Year's
Well,
resolution.
exactly. Cause anytime I do the thing where I'm going to work out, 5 days, no, I,
Yeah.
and you know what I mean? Or I'm going to not eat this, or, I mean, it's just like, I instead
Yeah.
of that, I want to, when I do eat something, to really relish it. Like when I
Enjoy it.
am,
Yeah.
like Saturday night, we went out with some friends, and that was another thing, is to get back to community,
Yeah.
and being with people and paying attention to them, because
Mm,
I have been lost in my head since I started writing the series, and
sure. Yeah.
my kids, getting my kids off and stuff. And I had pasta, and I usually don't, but I was like, I'm just going to enjoy every single bite of this instead of
Yeah.
saying, oh, you shouldn't be having. I mean, I think about the things we do to ourselves, and it's
Yeah.
like, no, I'm going to enjoy this.
Yeah.
And, and that's how I think about my characters when it comes to when they let themselves go in a steamy scene. I want them to enjoy it, or
Enjoy
why
all the
do it?
senses.
Yes. And you can tell somebody wrote a review on it in a magazine in Austin, Tribeza, and she wrote, she's literally a sensory expert, and you can tell when you read these things. And I was like, I do use the word sensory a lot, and I had to cut that. I mean, I was
Yeah.
like, okay, God, not everybody is like thinking about their senses. So,
I love
and
that.
my other one is community, just, for my resolutions. I know you didn't ask that question,
Yeah.
but just because it's nebulous, but it's also a real effort, making that effort again. I mean, we always held big parties and stuff at our house, but I want to just have people over for a
Yeah.
meal and just talk again, and not berate and go, you know, what's going on in the world,
Scream into the void.
Yeah. I'll hug people and cry,
Yeah, I texted screaming into the void to Deb, my one of my co-hosts today. Yeah, so I relate to
Yeah.
that a lot.
Yes, definitely.
And so last speed round question, what is your number one comfort read?
So I love humor. So like Wendy Aarons, and she's in Austin. And she has some funny books. So I love her stuff. But I also have gotten into reading, and this was an old love of mine, but back into reading like thrillers, like sexy
Oh,
thrillers. I don't know if
fun.
you know May Cobb. She wrote,
Yeah.
yes. So The Hunting Wives.
Hmm, yeah.
So I can't, it's weird to say that those are like comfort reads, but they kind of are because they're so, first of all, she has a lot of sensory information in her writing, and I love that. And it's so outrageous, the behavior of these rich,
Yeah.
women in Texas. And it just seems like it's so crazy, but it's not, because look at our world. So sometimes when you read that crazy shit, you can
Yeah.
actually laugh at it and
Hmm.
enjoy it. And it almost gives you comfort,
Yes.
because it's like, look, this is really going on. This is fiction. So,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
like watching reality shows and then you feel better about your life.
Yeah.
It's
No,
the same thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
No, exactly. Like
Yeah.
that's what, and May Cobb's The Hunting Wives has been made into a series.
Yeah, I
So
saw that.
yeah, so I love that kind of stuff. But I also like The Alchemist.
Yeah.
But I like a lot of his other work, like that's kind of depressing, but Veronica Forgets to Die. So I just like the sensory aspect of that writing, and
Yeah.
holding on to some of the quotes and they appear in some of my writing too. So
Yeah, I love that. Find inspiration wherever it,
yeah.
it comes in. Yeah. So, where can readers best connect with you? Is it through Instagram or a Facebook group or newsletter?
So I have Facebook, but it's Instagram, and I have a bunch of people registered for newsletters. So I was, and we started this push in December, and I had a bunch of people registering, but I didn't send anything out yet because we're so inundated. Well, it's my daughter that told me, Mom, people are inundated with stuff in December. Like she said, I'm doing
That is
delete,
true. Yeah.
delete. So I'm going to be sending out a newsletter. In a couple weeks, and on my website amarinylix.com, they can go in and register if they're interested, which is kind of fun because they get videos and
Yeah,
stuff. They can download raw videos and pictures from our website, and we're trying to change that up. They'll see some of the new videos go up there and stuff, so if people want to use them in reels or whatever they want to do with them, they can see some of that
that's
visual
awesome.
stuff too.
I love that. I saw the videos on your website. I didn't realize they were able, like, for somebody to download to use for helping promote your stuff. That's awesome. That's a great
Yeah.
idea. And we'll
And
have your,
also,
no,
sorry.
sorry, I was just going to say, we'll have your Instagram linked in our show notes too, so people can go
Okay.
and find your link tree to your website and
Yeah.
everything through that.
Thank you. I mean, I'd like to say I have TikTok too, but I'm never on there. I'm going to try to get on personally. I haven't done that yet that much. And talk and stuff like that. I just
Sure.
wanted to figure out, how that is going to be, because I am not putting on makeup like I did tonight
Yeah.
every time I went to the
No,
I'm
I get
like,
that.
so I
So
know.
sorry for the dings. My husband did not get the memo of like, don't try to text me during this time.
It's
Where
so funny
can
because I
we,
told my husband not to be behind me cooking and stuff.
yeah, just leave me alone for like 30 minutes, okay?
Yeah.
Where can we purchase your books?
Amazon. And there's several bookstores in Texas that have them too, Book People in Austin and stuff, but the main place is Amazon. I mean, Barnes and Noble has it as well, but I would say
Yeah,
they have that through, I mean, we have it where booksellers can buy it as well.
sure,
So
sure. Do you have any events or signings that you're planning on attending this year?
yeah, so I'm going to Minneapolis the end of February to sports con.
Oh,
So it's
fun.
sports romance con. I'm super excited because one of the bookstagrammers who's done a bunch of stuff around my series, Jess,
Yeah.
who's in Pennsylvania, and she's a Steelers fan, so my husband loves her. He calls her Steelers girl. I'm like, babe, her name's Jess.
Yeah.
So she's gonna be there, and I'm like, I'm taking you out to dinner. He's gonna be my PA, and I'm glad you
Yeah,
brought it up because I need to register him as the PA. So I'm doing a signing table and stuff there, and
that'll
I
be fun.
don't know a lot of people yet, but I'm
Sure.
excited to, do that. I just did a book signing at the Texas Book Festival for Steamy Lit.
Yeah.
So I'm just, just getting myself out there and doing that community, like
Yeah.
I was saying, but in the book world.
Well, that'll be really fun. Then it's always exciting to meet for authors to meet the bookstagrammers and for bookstagrammers to meet the authors. Like I feel like everybody gets equally excited about,
Yeah,
meeting
I know. I'm like
internet
this. I can't
friends.
wait. I can't wait. I'm like,
It'll be really fun. Well,
yeah.
so to finish out the interview, we always finish our episodes on the podcast of Our Nerdiest Thing, sharing what our nerdiest thing of the week is. And usually it is book related, but it doesn't have to be, just anything that you've been really excited about that you feel like you've nerded out about. And we would love to know what your nerdiest thing of the week is.
Um, Trying to think. I think it's like breaking through with book 5 because the main character is a professor and it revolves around dyslexia. So that's my son has dyslexia. And so this is very, very nerdy, but I asked him if I could use the story of when he figured out in
Mm,
second grade or third grade that we figured out and he kind of figured out something wasn't right.
yeah.
And so it was as a nerdy conversation. I reminded him about it. It was about monarch butterflies. So I have nerded out this week on looking up stuff about monarch butterflies because that's how we knew that he couldn't read a test. We knew already, we'd had him tested, but the
Right.
teachers didn't agree. They were like, his language is too high, all this stuff. And then I don't have to tell you the whole story, but he took a test and got an F on it. And it was on
Wow.
monarch butterflies. And I was like, that kid knows everything. So the teachers asked him, he knows everything about monarch butterflies. He knows their
Yeah.
migration patterns to Mexico. And this is years ago, right?
Sure.
So that's how we knew there was a discrepancy in his knowledge base. And then he really wasn't
Yeah.
reading, he was pretending. So anyway, so I nerded out this week on monarch butterflies. I'm sorry I didn't make that short. And I'm always nerding
Okay.
out on dyslexia and looking at MRIs and stuff like that, the new research. So, but
I love
monarch
that that's
butterflies.
I love that that's something that he is comfortable with you sharing, via your books. I think that's great. I love that. There needs to be more conversation around things like that. Well,
Yeah,
that's
well, it's
another
funny.
reason to put your books on the RTBRs.
Oh, I would love that. I would love
Yeah.
that. And I said to him, I said, why? He goes, Mom, yeah, you can use it. We had a conversation. I said, well, I'm going to email you and you have to say that I can use it so you can never sue me for part of
Put
it.
it in writing. Yeah.
He's like, oh, that's nice, Mom.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Tara, thank you so much. Amari, thank you so much for being with us on this podcast. And it's been really great to talk to you. Hopefully, we'll be able to meet up in person at an event one day. If
I
you're
would
ever
love
in
that.
Kentucky, give us a holler.
Yeah, no, and let me know if there's something going on there. And I'd love to register for and just see what events are going on in different states. I love
Yeah,
that. And
yeah.
I love Kentucky. I've only driven through Kentucky, but I would love to go again.
Yeah, we love it here. Well, thank you so much. It's been great to talk with you. Have a great rest of your night.
You too. Thank you so much.